Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the PBB 4B51. This is a 4.5 by 4.5 inch full mortise butt hinge. And that's what this hinge looks like. Let's take a couple of basic dimensional properties of it, and we'll talk about what it's used for, why you would want this hinge, maybe why you wouldn't. This is a 4.5. That means the height is the first dimension, and it's 4.5 inch tall. This happens to be 4.5 by 4.5, so it's 4.5 in both dimensions. But just be mindful that the height is the first dimension. So a 4.5 by 4.5, you can get away and not know which dimension is the height. But if you have a 5 by 4.5, now it's important to know that it's 5 tall. It's the height. It's the opposite way that doors are sized. The leaf thickness ought to be 180 thousandths on this 4.5 inch hinge, and my caliper's telling me 183 thousandths, so that's certainly within tolerance. This is what is considered a heavyweight full mortise 5-knuckle ball bearing stainless base material butt hinge is really what it is. The question becomes is where would you end up using this, and why might you want this versus another hinge? Let's talk about that now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now, the reason that you might want this hinge is just simply stated because your application calls for it. This is a standard size hinge. It's 4.5 inch. It's the most common width at 4.5 as well. That doesn't mean it's the best width. 4.5 by 4 might be a better size, or you might need a 4.5 by 6. Who knows? That's a different conversation about wide throw hinges, or maybe a narrower hinge. But this deviates from the standard hinge, really, the most common hinge, really in two ways. And that first way is that this hinge is heavyweight. It's 180 thousandths leaf thickness rather than 134 thousandths. The telltale sign of that is because it has 4 bearing packets. That makes this heavyweight. A standard weight hinge would be 134 thousandths, and it would have 2 bearing packets. That would be the giveaway sign that it's a standard weight hinge. Why do you want this? Heavier than average door, maybe a 3.0, 7.0, 16 gauge. That's probably why you might want to get into a heavyweight hinge. Or it might be a 3'4", and you want something that's going to take more, it'd be better capable of handling more volume. But generally a door that's heavier than average, a bit heavier than average, not a 14 gauge door or a lead line door or anything like that. You would probably use pivots for that. But a heavier than average door, or a door that has greater volume over it than a standard door. You know, you've got 100 cycles a day, or you've got 1,000 cycles a day. You're probably going to want to have a heavier hinge, a heavier leaf thickness. When the doors get to be 3 foot, I like to use a thicker hinge when I'm bigger than 3 foot or a higher volume. If I get to 3'6" and higher, I'll go to a 5 inch hinge. And I'll very often, if it's a heavier weight door, 3.6, 3.8, 4.0, it's 16 gauge, I'll use 5 inch and heavyweight. But for this, I'm thinking 3.0, 7.0, 16 gauge all day long. This should be great. No problem going to 5 inch, but 5 inch would be less common for someone to stock a prep for a 5 inch. The other thing about this is this. That failed. Okay. What it grabbed there was the steel in the bearing packet, but this hinge is non-ferrous. It's made of stainless steel. The tiny ball bearings that are in there are steel-based, which is what's catching it. You might want a stainless base hinge for 2 reasons. The primary reason is that resistance to corrosion. Exterior application, whether it be a northern application with lots of snow in the winter, or a coastal southern application with exposure to salt in the air, that would be a reason for it. Very not unheard of, but uncommonly someone will want actual 630 or 32D just because of the color. They want stainless steel, brushed stainless. Okay. 630 is the BHMA code for brushed stainless steel. US 32D is the US for the same, brushed stainless. This, or 630, happens to be the most durable of all natural finishes. So if you're looking for the finish that will last the longest, this is it. 630 or US 32D. We'll definitely give that to you. This is going to include some screws. It will include, as standard, all machine screws and all wood screws. Okay. Very marginally magnetic, and that's not uncommon for stainless steel when it's been machined, but this would be in a matching base material. Let's switch to the screen view. Oh, one thing. This is not an NRP. This is not for a non-removable pin. You can pick up non-removable pin as an option. That would be for an exterior door that swung out so that you couldn't drive the pin out. You'd want to make sure that pin didn't get driven out so that it would be a means by which someone could bypass your locked door by easily tapping out the pins and the hinges and pulling that door right out. So probably a heavier door, but still a standard size width, that is. Let's switch to the screen view and let's take a closer look at the supporting documentation. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, here is the item that we are indeed looking at. Stock image from the factory, just out of the catalog. Full mortise. I will explain that again in a moment, actually. Gauge 180 thousandths, stainless steel, brushed finish, 4 bearings, 5 knuckle for heavyweight doors and high-frequency service areas. There's a link below this video to the template. Before we look at that, let's take a look at the images that we have down below. That's showing the hinge. That's showing the hinge face on. This is what makes it full mortise. This bend on the leaf, that's called the swag. The way that you bend that leaf is how you determine what hinge type you have, whether it be swing clear, or raised barrel, or full surface, or half surface, or full mortise. This is what really changes the hinge, how that leaf is bent. That's where full mortise comes in. When you bring the leaves parallel, there's only about a 1/16 of an inch between the leaves when the door is in the closed position. That's the backside of the hinge. One claim to fame that PBB has been making for 3 decades, if not longer, is that they finish the back of their hinges. Some manufacturers don't. Not everybody treats the backside of the hinge like they do the front side of the hinge in terms of a finish. I would say that I would prefer my corporate advertising to be a bit less conspicuous. Maybe 2/3 that size would be better. It's a lot of corporate advertising on my hardware. But finishing the backside of the hinge is important because you will see some of this when the door is closed. And PBB does a good job at that. A close-up of the finish, and then another one of the knuckles and the logo that's there. The screw package, and then that template that we had mentioned. This is it right here. This is actually not the template. Let's get the correct template pulled up. All right, here's the proper template that we have for the 4B51. 4B51, 180 thousandths leaf thickness. Gives you the location of the screw holes here. If you're not sure if that matches what you have, double check. This is what's called the template pattern. That would be the typical location for hinge screws on any door or frame that's made to what's called a template pattern. The term template is used 2 ways. It's a technical drawing or a dimensional drawing called the template, and then the actual locations, the 3/8, the 1 inch, the 33/64, if that's what that is. Inch and an eighth, inch and just not being able to do it quickly in my head. 4/18, 19/64, who knows what that is. All of these dimensions conspire to make it the template pattern. Now, one thing about PBB is they have base materials that change. They have steel, brass, and stainless. The 4 in front of the B means it's heavyweight. The 8 means it's made of steel. A 2 means it's made of brass. This is our 50, or our 5, because it's made of stainless. Okay. Other dimensions that are here. Sometimes people ask the length of the lip, the diameter of the barrel, So it's not uncommon to be asked for that information as well. There is a link below this video as seen here to the manufacturer's page, and when we pull that up, we can not only view all of the PBB products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Let's click on that, take a quick view, and we'll do a Control F on our keyboard for 4B51, and we'll get to the page where we will find it. And that will easily allow you to understand as well how the part number changes when the base material changes. Steel, brass, stainless. This cut sheet, and it's linked down below as well, is good for 4.5 by 4 and 4.5, 4.5. 4.5 tall is the smallest they'll make it a heavyweight hinge. You won't get a 4-inch, but you will get 5-inch, 6-inch, and 8-inch as well in these hinges. Okay, PBB can do lots of hinges, and they keep. I'm not aware of any manufacturer of hinges that keeps more on the floor ready to ship very quickly than they do. Let's talk about PBB now. Let's switch back to the camera view and wrap up this video. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. I'll admit it, PBB is my secret go-to. When it's a hinge that no one has in stock and someone needs it to ship right away. I just had a client order heavyweight steel base 4.5, 4.5. That part wasn't hard, but in polished brass. Heavyweight steel polished brass. No problem. 300 on the shelf, ready to go. Oh, NRP, so they need 24 or 48 hours. That's what it was. They couldn't supply 12-wire hinges off the shelf. They could do 4-wire. This client couldn't tell me how many wires they wanted, or they couldn't tell me how many wires the application called for. And the client said, you know, I always order 12-wire. This way they have them if they need them. And I'm thinking in my head, that's not best practice because you're spending a lot more money needlessly on every job where you are by far the most common is going to be just needing 4-wire, and actually 1 pair is what you need, but you'll always get at least 2 pair of wires. And then it could be because the client didn't understand ultimately what would be happening on the door in terms of the final hardware set. I find that hard to believe. If you're supplying hinges, you're probably supplying the rest of it. Maybe the client just isn't comfortable with access control. And most people aren't. I think a lot of people who make a living in the Door Hardware Institute as architectural hardware consultants, they are not electrical hardware consultants and don't plan on becoming that. It's a different, it's an investment in time to learn access control, learning how to draw point-to-point and wiring diagrams. So we weren't able to supply those hinges because the client couldn't verify that they needed 4-wire or 8-wire. Or 12 or whatever it would be. But the point of the matter is when it comes to needing to get hinges off of the dock and into the hands of a carrier, PBB is just really good at it. So if you have any questions on the 4B51 and a 630 finish or any other PBB product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.